Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled you're joining me today because we are going to unpack something truly fascinating. Now, the World Cup is widely known as the absolute pinnacle of global sports. But if you look a little closer at the historical data, it's really so much more than just a football tournament. It's literally a theater for raw, unpredictable human drama. We're talking about a stage where single split-second moments can alter national identities, spark political shifts, and leave generational scars. So today, we're decoding the history behind these earth-shattering events using the hard facts, the numbers, and the direct accounts right from the pitch.
So let me ask you something. What actually makes a sports moment immortal? Like, why do some goals, or even fouls, transcend the 90 minutes of the game to become permanent fixtures in our global culture, talked about for decades? Well, it's rarely just about the athletic skill. It's really about the context, the suffocating pressure, the sheer defiance of expectations, and sometimes the absolute controversy of it all.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We'll be decoding 4 distinct historical events spanning over 50 years. 1. The ultimate upsets. 2. The Miracle of Bern. 3. The Hand of God. 4. A legend's bitter farewell. And finally, Section 5, the lingering legacies. Let's dive right in.
Section 1. The ultimate upsets. Our first massive shocker takes us all the way back to 1950. The tournament was hosted by Brazil, and uniquely, it didn't have a traditional knockout final, but rather a final round-robin group. The deciding match came down to Brazil and Uruguay. Now, to really wrap your head around this upset, you have to understand the sheer, blinding overconfidence of Brazil. Politicians were literally declaring victory in speeches before the game even started. A victory song called Brasil os Vencedores was composed and actively practiced by the band. They even minted 22 gold medals with the Brazilian players' names already on them. The cultural stakes were astronomical, and honestly, everyone thought it was a completely done deal.
And you can see why when you look at the raw data leading up to that match. Brazil was statistically dominating everyone. I mean, 13 goals in just 2 games in the final round. They absolutely crushed Sweden and Spain. Uruguay, on the other hand, had just squeaked by. Brazil only needed a draw to win the whole thing, while Uruguay absolutely had to win. On paper, it looked completely impossible for the underdogs.
But, games aren't played on paper. Right before the match, the Uruguayan coach actually told his team to play defensively just to avoid being humiliated. But the second he left the locker room, Uruguay's captain, Obdulio Varela, stood right up. He completely rejected that defensive strategy and delivered this absolutely legendary quote, "Muchachos, los de afuera son de palo, que comienza la función," which translates to, "Boys, outsiders are just stick dolls. Let the show begin." He rallied his team, telling them not to let the massive crowd or Brazil's momentum intimidate them.
And when we say massive crowd, we are not kidding. 173,850. That is the jaw-dropping official attendance at the Maracanazo Stadium that day, with some estimates saying it was well over 200,000. It's likely the most highly attended football match in human history. So Brazil scores first, but then Uruguay shockingly fights back and ties it. And then, in the 79th minute, Alcides Gigia scores the winner for Uruguay, 2-1. When the final whistle blew, that crowd of nearly 200,000 people fell into this disturbing, traumatized absolute silence.
Section 2. The Miracle of Bern.
Let's fast forward a bit to 1954 and see how this builds into another monumental David versus Goliath story, this time in Bern, Switzerland. We really have to frame the cultural context here. You had West Germany, a nation emerging from the absolute devastation of the Second World War, desperate for some kind of international recognition. And on the other side, Hungary's mighty Magyars. They were an absolute juggernaut, largely state-sponsored and riding an unbelievable 31-game undefeated streak spanning 5 entire years.
The magnitude of this upcoming upset is just wild when you look at the group stage data. Hungary was a machine, scoring 17 goals in 2 games. What's crazier is that they actually played West Germany in the group stage and absolutely dismantled them, 8-3. Now, the German coach had strategically rested key players to hide their true strength, but still, going into the final, nobody gave the semi-professional Germans a snowball's chance.
So picture this. It's pouring rain and the final starts exactly as expected. Within 8 minutes, Hungary is already up 2-0. Everyone's thinking, here we go, another blowout. But then West Germany strikes back instantly. 10 minutes in, they score.
18 minutes in, they tie it up. The tension is just building and building for over an hour of grueling play. Then, in the 84th minute, Helmut Rahn drives the ball low and hard past the Hungarian keeper, sealing a totally unbelievable 3-2 victory. Back home, millions of Germans were huddled around radios, just clinging to Herbert Zimmermann's desperate broadcast. When that winning goal went in, Zimmermann completely lost it. He's screaming, "Goal! Goal! 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 Call me crazy, call me mental. I believe also football laymen should have a heart." It sent this absolute shockwave of euphoria across a nation that was still recovering and divided.
Section 3, the Hand of God.
All right, we are leaving the era of pure underdog miracles and diving headfirst into the ultimate realm of controversy. It's 1986, the quarterfinal in Mexico City between Argentina and England. But the real stakes here were established 4 years prior. This match was played in the heavy shadow of the 1982 Falklands War between the UK and Argentina. Both teams were acutely aware of the nationalistic fervor, which transformed what should have been a standard knockout game into a deeply symbolic confrontation.
So how exactly did this play out on the pitch? Let's break it down step by step. Early in the second half, England's Steve Hodge miskicks a clearance, popping the ball back toward his own penalty box. Diego Maradona sprints in to contest the dropping ball against the English keeper, Peter Shilton. Now, Shilton is way taller, and crucially, he's allowed to use his hands. But Maradona jumps up, stretches out his left arm, and literally punches the ball into the net with his fist. Knowing exactly what he just did, Maradona instantly starts celebrating, looking over his shoulder at the referee to sell it. And remarkably, the ref buys it. The goal stands.
When reporters cornered him right after the game, Maradona offered this incredibly famous, cheeky justification. He said the goal was scored a little with the head of Maradona and a little with the hand of God. Decades later, he'd fully admit to the handball, calling it symbolic revenge for the Falklands. Historians often look at this moment as the ultimate physical embodiment of viveza criolla, which is a South American concept of native cunning, basically outsmarting the system to get what you need.
To give you a sense of just how deeply immortalized this single, controversial moment became, look at this number, 7.1 million pounds. That is exactly how much the blue shirt Maradona wore during that match sold for at auction in 2022. It shattered records for sports memorabilia, which just goes to show the massive cultural weight of that one punch of the ball.
Section 4. A Legend's Bitter Farewell. Let's slow things down a bit for this next one. We're jumping to the 2006 final in Berlin. The pressure here was suffocating, really on two entirely different levels. On one hand, you've got France and Italy deadlocked at 1-1, deep into the 110th minute of extra time. But on the other hand, the personal stakes were monumental. This was officially announced as Zinedine Zidane's very last professional match before retiring. He was the legendary captain aiming to ride off into the sunset with a second World Cup trophy for France. But then, the absolute unthinkable happens. Away from the ball, Zidane and Italian defender Marco Materazzi get into a verbal altercation. Materazzi would later admit to insulting Zidane's family. Suddenly, Zidane stops, turns around, and violently headbutts Materazzi square in the chest. He gets a straight red card. And the most enduring, tragic image of Zidane's entire career isn't him lifting the cup. It's him walking down the tunnel in defeat, passing right by that golden trophy. France, down to 10 men, went on to lose the shootout.
Section 5, the Lingering Legacies.
Okay, let's zoom out for a second and see how these moments permanently altered things off the pitch. 1950 didn't just hand Uruguay a trophy. It caused a national trauma in Brazil so deep they literally changed their uniform colors to the yellow and green we know today, just to erase the memory. 1954 gave a broken West Germany such a massive injection of post-war confidence that historians literally call it the founding day of the German Republic. 1986 gave Argentina a sense of symbolic geopolitical revenge. And 2006? It proved that even our absolute greatest sporting gods are human, capable of falling victim to raw emotion.
These are the wild, unpredictable moments that write history. Which brings me to a final question for you to chew on. With the pressure cooker of this tournament constantly evolving, what defining moment is going to shock the world next? Definitely keep that in mind the next time you tune in. Thank you so much for engaging with this explainer. I hope you found decoding this history just as fascinating as I did.